22 minutes past the hour right now. Good morning to you. Tropical storm Barry barreling toward the Gulf Coast right now. Maximum sustained winds 65 miles per hour. It is expected to be a hurricane when it makes landfall. We're talking about dangerous storm surge, heavy rains, wind conditions. Those are the biggest threats thus far this morning, and there's a live picture for you. I believe that's of Lake Pontchartrain.
Officials in St. Mary Parish say that they're expecting 10 to 20 inches of rain over the next 3 days. Already, more than 48,000 customers are without power across the state. We want to go straight now out to CNN's Erica Hill, who's in Lafayette, Louisiana. Good morning to you, Erica.
Hey guys, good morning. Lafayette, really important as we talk about what could happen not only during but after the storm, because there's so much of a focus on flooding. As you have been talking about throughout the morning, this is a very large storm. It is slow moving and there is more on the backside. So one of the areas specifically from Lafayette that they're concerned about is St. Mary's Parish, as you just mentioned. The Vermilion River, which runs through Lafayette, wasn't initially as much of a concern for officials here because it is currently below its normal levels. Well, last night we heard some differing things from the sheriff's department saying now they are a little bit more concerned about the river here, concerned that with all of this rain that is coming, it could in fact increase the levels here in that river. That could then continue to flow downriver, and that's one of the concerns that could affect places south. For a better look at how this flooding could be affected, why it is such a concern in these low-lying areas, I want to bring in CNN meteorologist Allison Chinchar. And Allison, it is so important to stress, as we're hearing from officials, just because people think, oh, well, part of this has passed. Yes, there's a lot of rain, but when the rain is gone, the threat is gone. That is not the case, because the flooding threat could actually continue for days, if not weeks, because of the way the Mississippi will be flowing, correct?
Yes, and you also have to understand that we haven't really had a storm like this where the Mississippi River has been at these high of levels before. You hear a lot of people comparing this storm to Hurricane Katrina or Isaac or Tropical Storm Allison, a lot of these others, but you have to understand you're comparing apples to oranges. Again, the Mississippi River is at very, very high levels, not just in New Orleans, but at a lot of spots further upstream. So you have to factor that in, that yes, we may only be adding 2 to 4 feet or 3 to 6 feet in some areas of storm surge, but those river levels are already extremely high, so it's not going to take all that much to trigger some of the flooding. So from a real life perspective, let's take a look at what those numbers actually mean when we say 2 to 4 feet, 3 to 6 feet, okay? Because it can be kind of hard to visualize. Here's a home, okay, along the coast. You've got your normal sea level that kind of deals with high and low tides, so you can see those differences right there. But what happens when you start to factor in that storm surge that comes in, okay? So here's about 2 feet. You saw that on the low end of the chart that we were showing. Now bring in 4 feet. Now it actually starts to begin to trickle into the lower levels of someone's home. But once you get up to 6 feet, now you're starting to creep into almost covering the entire first story of someone's home. And if this is where you have been told to shelter in place, like some government officials have been telling people to do, this doesn't give you a lot of options. If you are lucky enough to have a second level of your home, sure, you can go up there. But if you don't, this is why we have the potential to end up having some water rescues for people who decide to stick it out in their homes along those low-lying areas, because that water will continue to rise. Now, when we also talk about this, it's not just storm surge. We're also talking about the water that's going to come down from the sky. So it's a twofold. You've got storm surge coming in from underneath you and rain coming from above you. That's why we have such a huge flood risk here with this particular storm. And again, it's not just for Louisiana. I can't emphasize that enough. Other states are going to be impacted. Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee all have portions of them, or in Mississippi's case, the entire state of Mississippi is under a flood watch. We're talking over 10 million people dealing with that threat, and it's because of the moisture that's going to come in from this particular storm that you can see. Here's a look. That moisture will start to surge north as the storm itself does, taking all of that moisture into even further states like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky. So even if you don't live on the coast, you still need to keep a very close eye on this storm if you live in the Midwest or even eventually in the Northeast, because that's where that moisture is all going to surge into, taking with it the chance for some very heavy rain. This is a look at the flash flood threat. The red and the pink color indicates moderate and high risk respectively. So again, you can see this really does encompass a pretty decent area, but most importantly, guys, it's going to encompass an area that is already already low-lying areas that are prone to flooding, let alone when you factor in not only a tropical storm, potentially a hurricane, but also the fact that this ground is already saturated from months of high flow on the rivers and months of heavy rain.
All right, Allison, thank you. And just to reiterate, one of the reasons that we are in Lafayette is because so much is being staged here. Boats, high water vehicles, buses as well, so that when those rescues are needed, they can launch from here, and also those buses to bring people once they've been evacuated to ideally meet up with friends and family in other areas. I want to go now to CNN Natasha Chen, who's in Morgan City, which has been a major focus and where I believe, Natasha, some of these 48,000 customers without power are located now as well.
No, that's right. We're seeing that parts of town have their lights have flickered off as we were getting to this seawall location where we are. Now, you were talking about the saturation and the fact that the Mississippi River has been at flood stage already for so long as Barry comes in. And where we are standing is at the top of a staircase. We're at the bottom of it. It's dark, too dark to show you right now, but there is water over that staircase at the bottom few steps, and we can see that the river has covered trash cans and benches where people normally are able to walk out there and sit. So think of that situation, then add on this tropical storm, possibly hurricane that is going to make landfall later today. Now, as of yesterday, they were doing voluntary evacuations for people in town, but so far as I could see, I don't see too many people that we've talked to who decided to leave town. There are some people who have decided to go to a hotel so that there is potentially a better chance to have power, but they are definitely prepared for the fact that streets may flood. This is a place that's expecting 10 to 20 inches of rain with 7 pumps. That's already after additional ones were brought in. 7 pumps to try and get all of this water out throughout the day. What they are concerned about is that these pumps can handle the first 5 inches of rain and then 1 inch per hour. But if they get that 10 to 20 all at once, they're going to be in some serious trouble.
That is the big concern. Of course, these sustained rains, too, that it could be there for such a long time. You talk about the people who've decided to stay. As we know, we always hear if you are staying, you need to make sure you have 3 days worth of food and water. In terms of preparation, did you get the sense that they were preparing, that they did have those supplies stocked and ready? Were they to be stuck in their homes for potentially days on end?
I haven't spoken to too many people about what they actually prepared. The one person that we ran into in the middle of the night here as we were coming out to do these reports said that he was actually hanging out at the hotel because there was no power at home and the generator had stopped working. So it sounds like people have generators that they prepared for the possibility of going without power for a little while. The emergency management folks that we saw yesterday said they are just waiting for Monday, because as long as this rainfall estimate that they're getting is over the course of 3 days, they say they may have a fighting chance to avoid the worst of this. But of course, like you said earlier, we are expecting this storm to make landfall just west of us, and so Morgan City may really be in the thick of it.